Hello and welcome back to our Video Tech Trends mini clip series. Today we're joined by Christopher Levy from BuyDRM. What's the basis of this particular conversation today is we're talking about how video analytics are very important to optimizing a video workflow and making sure that everything is in order, and it can ultimately save you on a lot of costs down the line. So in our Video Tech Trends webinar and on our blog posts, where we discussed our video analytics like startup time, bitrate management, and all those things that make up the actual video workflow. But one of the video analytics that we didn't get to touch on are DRM analytics. And Christopher, I'd really appreciate if you can tell me what exactly are DRM analytics and what are some of the other data points that they include?
Sure. I think, last year we saw a big move towards, people addressing low latency streaming, and analytics became very important very quickly. I think in the past it was kind of a nice to have, but now it's a need to have. Clearly BitMoven's been doing a lot of communications around it. As part of that video playback workflow, when you're talking about premium content, licensed content, content for major media operators, and also a lot of niche e-learning content, before you can actually stream the file, you have to acquire a DRM license key to play it. So the DRM license acquisition process is part of that low latency streaming workflow. Here at BuyDRM, we have developed a platform, first of its kind, called the KeyQ platform for measuring and reporting DRM analytics. They're a critical part of the video analytics workflow. And as a result, we track types of requests. We track who requests licenses and from where, the geography in which the licenses are requested from and delivered to. We track the versions of the DRM gears or key stores that are on the playback device. We monitor and record the state of the DRM certificates on the receiving device, the versions of the content decryption model. And then we also provide a little more broader analytical data, including the usage kind of volume. So we record average requests per second and peak requests per second from our platform. I think we're the only DRM company that does that. We track license request failures and even a check to see if the player that's being used appears on a revocation list or not from the different DRM vendors, Apple, Google, and Microsoft.
So those are quite a lot and very granular analytics that you can get into. And looking at it one by one, you can see how those might add value from the perspective of, oh, hey, I can see that this individual license key is running, that my content is protected. But what are some of the other added values that these new metrics and DRM analytics can provide?
Yeah, especially as we're moving to multi-license key content where people are encrypting the different display sets of content, the different bit rates, the different audio and video streams with keys. As a streaming vendor like BitMoven, who's providing the playback, that quickly bubbles up. To that extent, DRM analytics are what we call the canary in the coal mine indicator of the speed, latency, and effectiveness of your video delivery operations. So it's the first touch that you have with the user during a playback session. And so that's the first time that you have to kind of start recording what the overall experience is. The DRM analytics enable you to get a first look at how your choices of the different formats, DRMs, and containers are working with regard to the audience experience. You've got audiences that are on a bunch of different geographies, types of networks, both wired, unwired, blended networks. You've got them on different versions of devices in different countries. So the DRM analytics allow you to kind of get a broad view of that and help you really narrow in on how to have the best streaming experience. So they're the first steps in ensuring the user has a speedy streaming experience, and they provide you the ability to ensure that the management, legal, finance, marketing groups within your company that you're meeting the mandatory minimum studio and content licensor requirements. So that's another component of not only measuring the quality and speed of your streaming as part of the starting with DRM and ending with the or next the manifest, or the manifest being delivered, the DRM license being acquired, the chunks being sent to the player rendering the chunks. All that is embedded in that. But analytics give you the chance to kind of more broadly analyze and communicate to the larger organization, how that's going, and how to keep the momentum going, and helps companies identify where they're having a lot of success and where they're having very little success, and then they can kind of focus on eliminating the little success and optimizing the big success.
So I think you brought up a really interesting keyword there that I think everyone in the video tech and just general video industry loves to talk about, and that's the speed and the quality of a video stream. And that is very often tied to low latency. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? How can, for example, how can video operators lower latency on their various streaming by optimizing their DRM implementations, and how exactly the DRM analytics might play into that whole workflow?
Yeah, sure. I think as I hit on earlier, there was a movement, I'd say almost 2 years ago, amongst leaders in the market space like Bitmovin and others, to start to say, hey, okay, we do streaming now really well, but latency is an issue, and it's the number one driver of users bailing out of content, or driving support claims, or creating problems between marketing, between distribution partners and content owners. So we kind of firmly inserted ourselves into this discussion around low latency streaming, which the industry at large has kind of created. And we quickly found out that in a lot of cases, they were overlooking the use of DRM and what the impact of it was on the overall playback. A lot of times you'll see webinars about, from glass to glass, so from the camera head or from the source file to the user's device, and we'll talk about, hey, we can ship chunks in under a millisecond, but we can't acquire DRM licenses that fast. We can do it pretty fast, but it's something that has to be optimized. So we started this discussion about a year ago. We coined the term low latency DRM. We did this fabulous kind of workup on it, and we found that and kind of looking at the market, a lot of these operators are suffering from a variety of defects in how they deploy DRM, which have created latency in their video workflow solutions. And that may lead them to think there are other components of the solution that are defective, like their streaming operator, their player, et cetera, which is generally not the case. So, we did a webinar with Bitmovin about this. It's up on our blog at thedrmblog.com. We did a very in-depth presentation explaining how companies can tweak their DRM implementations, everything from using a proxy to doing indirect license acquisition versus direct license acquisition, to doing on-the-fly packaging. So we've started to kind of bubble up that component of the low latency streaming discussion. And that video is it's a great testament to how BuyDRM and Bitmovin are addressing this in the market. And there's also the PDF of the deck from the presentation, which has very defined points that explain how to optimize that experience. And so, that's out there, and we're going to continue to kind of push that message, because, as more and more major operators operate content, more and more they're using DRM. So it's really important that for them to see, the shine on their business and their great encoding and their great player and UI and the killer content, that the DRM piece not be in the way of that. And so that's really where we're at today with the discussion.
Well, thank you for all of that, Christopher. It's a lot of great information, and just to let all of our viewers know, everyone who's watching this, whenever and whichever platform you are watching this, you can find links to all of these great resources in this post, in the description below, wherever you're watching. Feel free to let any of us know if you have any questions. We'll also include contact us information below. Thanks again for joining us today, Christopher.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.